You know, it's funny, every time I put up an electric car review or something about electric cars, I always get a bunch of comments on whether it be YouTube or on Facebook. People, clearly car guys, going, no, I would never do that, I'm never going to switch to electric, and you know, I'll never, they're a waste of time, they're milk floats, I'll never relinquish my petrol car. I get it. I really do. Not so long ago I was exactly the same, you know. The proof of the pudding, you know, as they say, is in the eating. You drive a few of these things and you go, oh, actually they're not that bad. Thing is, if you strip away all of the political baggage that comes with electrical cars, you strip away all the politics behind the emissions and the CO2 and all of that, if you strip all of that away, take all of that out of the argument and just look at electric cars on their own, then you realize actually they're not so bad, you know. It's just the trouble is because of all of this other stuff kind of colors your view. You end up in a situation where you think that, you know, it's an attack on the traditional car rather than something that's new and different and quite interesting, actually. I think that's the way I've started to come to look at the electric cars, as something that are different and unique and an alternative. I see them as part of the future, definitely. I see them as being here to stay, but I don't see them as entirely part of the future. Sorry, I don't see them as entirely the only solution for the future. I see them as being part of the future. Unfortunately, a lot of people have jumped onto the electric car bandwagon, including a lot of manufacturers. And one thing that also makes me laugh about many of those people that leave those comments, who are clearly car people like myself, which is why I can totally empathize and understand where they're coming from. But the reality is that many of the cars that they would deem enthusiast cars, that they would deem the sort of cars that they would aspire to want to own and run and drive and enjoy, are the sort of cars that won't be available as petrol anymore. Most recently, of course, Volkswagen confirmed that after the current Golf, the Mark 8 Golf, ends official production, that's it. No more Golf. I say no more Golf, they say no more Golf, but the reality is there is a Golf. The new Golf, if you look at the VW ID2 that was revealed, it's basically a Golf, you know. So, I mean, and they may even continue the Golf name for all we know. I mean, the name has so much history and heritage. How can you just suddenly kill it off? I guess what they're really saying, instead of saying that no more Golf, I guess what they're really saying is no more petrol Golf, no more diesel Golf. And obviously, by implication, no more of the beloved Golf GTI, or indeed the R32 for that matter. So those are the cars that looks like we will be losing. Oh, I've chosen a really bad path here. This is waterlogged. That was a bad move. Oh dear. And now my shoes are a mess. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh my goodness, this is really bad. This was a mistake. Anyway, so quickly want to get out of this bit because that was a bad move. But the question is this a bad move for the car industry? Are they making a mistake by doing that? Oh, I need to dry off my shoe now. Is this a mistake on their part? And I think there's a fair argument for the fact that it is. Like I said, Volkswagen is not on its own. You have Mercedes. The fabulous V8 from Mercedes that goes into the AMG models. That's essentially dead. That's not coming. They're not doing that anymore. All the new AMGs are not V8s anymore. They're hybrids. And I'm a lover of a V8. I love American V8s. I love a good V8. V8s out the door. Many of the muscle cars in America aren't going to have V8s in the next generation. Come down from the V8, look at things like the Honda Civic Type R. I was reading somewhere that the current Civic Type R might be the last combustion engine Civic Type R, CTR. We have to be aware of this, the fact that this is happening. And if you still want to have, you know, cool, fun, exciting cars that are still going to be something that you want to desire or lust after, or maybe the next generation will want to lust after and desire, then we have to be a little bit more accepting of the concept of the electrified versions, the electric versions of those cars. They're coming, they're here to stay. But on the other hand, I also feel a bit sorry for the manufacturers. I feel a bit concerned because I feel that jumping onto this bandwagon might not have been the best move, so to speak, because if you think about the fact that what's happening with a lot of these, like Mercedes for example, stopping development of the combustion V8, Volkswagen concentrating entirely on their ID series of cars, so therefore, and the ID series of cars is very much built around their modular platform, which of course is entirely electric. It can only be electric. So you have a situation where you've basically put all of your eggs in one basket, the electric basket. That's it. You have no other option. It's quite interesting that Mini has released, obviously, the Mini. There's going to be a completely new family of Mini. I think a year or two ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I reviewed a Mini, and I said that, oh, perhaps like the Fiat 500 is going to go entirely electric next time. I was only half right, because like I said, Fiat 500 is another fun little enthusiast car that is now entirely electric. So if you're a fan of the Fiat 500 but you're not a fan of electric cars, too bad, because it's now only available as electric. The Mini, however, there is going to be an all-electric family, so there will be electric versions of all of the cars, but it won't be exclusively electric. So you'll still be able to get a petrol version. In fact, what they're doing is they're building the electric version of it in China, and here in the UK they'll still build the petrol version of it. So that option will still be there. I think that's a bit of a BMW thing, which is why I think BMW have got the right idea here, because they're sort of almost parallel developing both cars. They're not giving up on it entirely. You know, a lot of manufacturers are now starting to wind down their ICE R&D departments, ICE meaning internal combustion engine. You know, and many manufacturers have said, Ford have started cutting back. I've said this often, but Ford have stated that, you know, they expect to see a 40% cutback in their workforce as they move entirely to electric. Ultimately, the electric car is a less complex car in one sense compared to, you know, traditional ICE car. It also helps that they are, Ford are actually collaborating with VW, so just using VW modular platform. Again, people like VW and others, in fact, creating these modular platforms. These platforms are designed to be used by anybody for any car. You just build a body on top of it, so it's pretty straightforward, and the technology is the same, which means the manufacturers then have to close those departments, cut back, get rid of all those engineers and all the people that are developing those sort of cars, basically close the door on all of that. But of course, then what comes to mind is that if you're closing the door on all of that, what happens if, a little bit like diesel, we were told diesel 15 years ago, we were told diesel is the answer, that's it, diesel is the way to do this. And of course now diesel is so hated, sales have just dive bombed, it's completely in decline. What happens if in, like, you know, 10 years whatever from now, again, to bring some of the politics now back into electric cars, even though earlier I said let's strip away the politics, but to bring that back in, what if, you know, in 10 years time, 15 years time, they turn around and say, actually, you know, electric cars, yeah, they weren't such a great idea after all. Where does that leave us? More importantly, where does that leave the manufacturers? Because they will have completely, you know, wound down their internal combustion engine side of their operations, relied fully on the electric side, and then if they suddenly turn around and said, no, actually electric cars aren't working out, either people just aren't buying them, so the customers are just saying they're not working by the fact that they're not buying them, or governments turn around and say, you know what, actually this is a bad idea because, you know, it just hasn't worked out in an environmental sense, because obviously that's what they'll be looking at, then that's a big problem. But BMW, like I said, I think they've taken a slightly more clever route, because they're developing, so you have the BMW 4 Series, you have the BMW i4 M50, by the way, one of my favorite electric cars, because it's just so much fun to drive. It still drives and handles like a BMW, it's just so much fun, and the artificial noise actually makes it better. I like it. And of course they got the BMW i4 4 Series, they got the BMW i7 7 Series, and with the Mini, like as I've just said, which is also part of the BMW group, of course, they got the BMW Mini Electric, fully fledged electric range of Minis, but not entirely giving up on the combustion engine. There will be a parallel range of petrol Minis as well. And don't forget that Germany is one of the countries that has pushed back against the 2035 deadline for transitioning entirely to electric cars only for sale brand new, which of course is 2030 here in the UK. But of course in Europe that's already been pushed back, because two countries, Germany and Italy, both said no. They'd like to see the internal combustion engine continue, and it was granted on the basis of that they were developing fuels. Porsche, for example, is doing a lot of work developing on e-fuels. I don't think Porsche is about to go entirely electric either, and I don't think the 911, I don't think we've seen the last combustion engine 911, that's for sure. Of course in Italy as well, home of the supercar, yes, they have hybridized some of their supercars, but I don't think they're willing to go entirely electric yet. So it's very interesting to see that there's a pushback. So I think that, you know, that will happen. I don't think the 2030 deadline will be met here either. I think that's going to be pushed back as well. So that's heartening, but also it's not so heartening for those manufacturers that are going, right, let's go all in on electric. Nothing against electric cars. I'm a big fan of them. Like I said, I think they're fantastic, and I think that anybody that's a doubter should go and drive one. I don't think that the electric car is right for everybody at this time, you know, because of various issues such as charging infrastructure, range, etc, etc. I don't think it's right for everybody, but I think for some people it's the perfect car to have. So definitely worth checking them out. But overall, I think, yeah, people just need to take a little bit of a breather, or rather the car industry does, and go, hang on, is this really the right thing? Let me know what you think in the comments. Love to hear your views. Catch you in the next video. Hopefully it'll stop raining by then. Brown car guy. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit the like button and share this video as well if you can. And while you're at it, check out these guys who also sponsor my content. I am deeply grateful to them because it helps me to buy new equipment, put fuel in the cars, and yes, buy a cup of coffee. You can do the same. Just go here or right here on YouTube. Just hit these 3 little dots down here and click on thanks. Make sure you're signed in first. My content is free, but this is how you can help me keep it that way. I may even send you a gift. Oh, by the way, watch this next.